everybody, welcome back to Old Man Van Running. Today, I'm going to give you my first impressions review of the all-new On Cloudmonster. This is a max cushioned, max stack, neutral training shoe from the Swiss shoemaker On. So you may be wondering, why is Old Man Van reviewing a neutral training shoe? You know, I'm a mild to moderate stability daily trainer type of guy, and I only wear neutral shoes generally when I'm racing. However, I read when On announced that this shoe was coming out that there was some inherent stability built into this shoe. Something that, you know, maybe Old Man Van can try it out and see how it works with his current biomechanics. So before we get started, before we get out on the road, and before we get into the details, just a little bit of my history with On shoes. I've tried them on in the store before. I've tried on some of their stability offerings like the On Cloud Flyer. I just haven't pulled the trigger on purchasing a pair. And the reason was that they felt, you know, when I tried them on and walk around the store and maybe run out on the sidewalk a little bit, they felt pretty flat to me, not a lot of support under the arch, and they felt a little firm, a little stiff, just a little hard. And it just never felt to me like, hey, this was going to work. So that's why, to this point, I have not tried any of the shoes from On. So that brings me to the On Cloudmonster. Everything I read about this shoe was positive. I read that it was significantly more cushioned than their previous offerings. I also read that it felt much softer, that it had much more support in the midfoot because of the way they put the footbed. So based on those things, I figured I'd take a flyer on it, not a Cloud Flyer, but a flyer, and I went ahead and ordered this shoe. Not available in the stores yet, but my online retailer, I have a little bit of an in with, and they allowed me to purchase this shoe before it was readily available in the stores. So let's get right into my impressions out on the road. So, you know, I'm really impressed by the On Cloudmonster so far. As you know, I'm a mild to moderate stability runner, and, you know, taking a chance on a neutral training shoe, you know, it's a little dicey there. It's a little bit risky, but I had heard that there was some inherent stability in the On Cloudmonster, so I figured I'd give it a try. So far, it's definitely responsive, definitely cushioned. In fact, if I had to compare it most closely to other shoes that I'm wearing right now, it would be the Hoka Arahi 6. You know, it's got a similar level of cushioning in it, but it's a different feel. These On Cloud Tech pods, it's kind of hollowed out pods in the midsole. You know, you feel them compress, but they don't bottom out, and they kind of pop at the end and give you some energy return. Now that's different from the Hoka Arahi 6. Even the Arahi 5, they had the same midsole. The responsiveness in those shoes is due to the early stage meta rocker, not the midsole. The midsole in those shoes, albeit plenty of good cushioning, feels a little more dead or dull. I guess the best way I could characterize it is it's a similar feel
although not as responsive as the feel in my A6 Metaspeed Skies. Kind of like a bouncy feel. You got a rocker, kind of propels you forward and toe off. But obviously, these shoes are much heavier than the Metaspeed Skies that don't have the carbon plate, although they do have kind of like a little thermoplastic plate, but it gives you a similar feel, although in a heavier shoe, and a shoe you can tell has a little more structure to it. It's a little more stable, obviously, and it's more geared towards those long miles, those recovery runs, but it's light enough and responsive enough to be versatile, maybe get you up to tempo speeds, maybe even, hey, if you don't need a $250 or $300, you know, race shoe, super shoe, and aren't going for, you know, world records, you could definitely use this shoe for a half marathon or a marathon if you so choose to do so. So far, so good.
So there you have my impressions out on the road. Pretty positive to start. Now let's get into the details on the all-new On Cloudmonster. So this shoe, as I mentioned, is a max cushion, max stack, neutral daily trainer. It retails for $169.95 US, and that's pretty consistent across all of the retailers that I've looked at so far. Although this shoe looks pretty substantial, looks pretty big, kind of looks pretty big on the foot, it's only 9.7 ounces in a men's size 9. So that's pretty darn good considering the significant stack height here. Now, talking about that stack height, this shoe has a stack height of 33 millimeters in the rear foot, 27 millimeters in the forefoot, for a heel to toe drop of 6 millimeters. I think that's a really, really good toe drop. My Hoka Arahi 5s are only, and 6s are only 5 millimeters, and my A6 Metaspeed Sky Racing shoes are only 5 millimeters. And I have a number of other shoes like the Saucony Guide 15, Saucony Guide 14, the Brooks Hyperion Tempo that are 8 millimeters. And then my, long training shoes like the Brooks Glycerin GTS 19 and the Asics Gel Kano 28. Those are 10 millimeters. So I think the 6 millimeters really fits right in there. And I kind of like the fact that it's just a little bit more than the Arahi 6s, but less than the 8 millimeters in those other shoes that I mentioned. So I really like that. Now, from a construction standpoint, I like the eco-friendly nature of the On Cloudmonster. Overall, this shoe is manufactured 30% recycled materials. So now the construction of the On Cloudmonster. So let's talk about the upper on the On Cloudmonster. The upper is engineered mesh made of 80% recycled materials, which is really good. Thanks for being eco-friendly, On. It's really, really comfortable, but not as ventilated as some of the other shoes that I've reviewed. The perforations on here, it's really hard to see, and I did notice when I was out there running at over 70 degrees that my feet started to get a little warm. So we'll have to take some more runs and some warmer temperatures, maybe with some lighter socks, to see if that stays the case. There are some overlays on this upper. You've got the On logo here. You've got, which goes around on both the lateral and medial side, just kind of like this overlay with design on it. I don't believe that those overlays are there for structure. They're there more for aesthetics, but I don't really think they have much to do with structure of the shoe. Looking at the lacing pattern, it's this star lacing pattern. It's not the typical lacing pattern you normally see. It's a little more difficult to get a real good lockdown. I didn't have much of a problem with it because the laces are nice and flat, which I like. But where I did have some trouble is I wear the Stride foot pod on my left foot. And that Stride foot pod I use for power. It's really important to have a consistent location across all of your shoes. And it's important to get it as close to the toe as you can. Having a lack of a straight lace down here forces me to place the foot pod a little bit higher up on the instep. And that could have an impact on the accuracy of my foot pod. But as I said, I really do like the fact that the laces are flat. They are long enough, almost too short to get my typical runner's lacing or marathon lacing and allowing me to do a double knot. But I'm finding as I kind of get used to the shoes and get them kind of worn in and broken in, I'm able to get a little more length at the lockdown or at the cinch down of those laces so that I can get a double knot. Maybe a little more length would be good, but they do the job. Talking about the tongue. This is a flat tongue. It's a flat, semi-gusseted tongue. I don't know if you can see it in there. I like flat tongues, okay? I like flat tongues on the shoes that I wear for quicker runs. I love them in my racing shoes. I don't want a real thick, heavy tongue on my racing shoes. And I actually really like the flat tongue in the Brooks Hyperion Tempo. Now, this shoe has a similar flat tongue. I'm getting used to it because of the way the lacing pattern is, this star lacing pattern here. I'm struggling a little bit getting a real nice lockdown without putting too much pressure on the top of my feet. But the fact that it's semi-gusseted helps it stay in place. And I think over time, once I get it really locked in good, to where I know how tight to go, it'll probably be okay. So, would it be nice to have a little more padding in this tongue? Maybe, but it's not a big deal. And again, you know what? Flat tongues are okay as long as you don't put too much pressure on the top of your foot. Around the heel and ankle collar, there's plenty of padding there. Maybe not as much padding as some of the other training shoes I have, but plenty of padding. Now, it's a little bit funkier shape. You don't have, that big heel flare or Achilles flare on this shoe, but I'm not feeling any lack of lockdown in the heel, so that's good. There is less structure, though, than what I tend to have in those stability shoes, but I don't notice it. I don't notice that I don't have the structure there, and I'm not getting any pressure on my Achilles. It's not like what I was afraid of, that my heel might start to pop out because of the way this shape is. But I haven't had a problem to this point. I've been able to get a good lockdown around my ankles, around my heels. There's no movement of my foot in the shoe. I'm able to get a nice lockdown around the forefoot. It actually is true to size, so far, so good. No big issues. Now in the forefoot, there is plenty of volume there for my medium D width feet. I have read that it could be a tad shorter, and when I first put my feet in this shoe, I was worried that my big toe was going to be rubbing on the front of the shoe. I found after 4 runs that's not an issue whatsoever, and my typical size 11.5 US fits true to size for me. Now, as I mentioned, this is a neutral training shoe, and I typically wear mild to moderate stability daily trainers. So I'm taking a chance here, right? I'm taking a risk. Now, what I've found, similar to a couple of the shoes I've reviewed recently, the Saucony Guide 15 and the Hoka Arahi 6. Both of those shoes, the footbed sits cupped into the midsole. And guess what? In the On Cloudmonster, it's the same thing. This is different than the previous Ons that I tried on, is that footbed sits cradled into the midsole. I think that's what's giving the On Cloudmonster a significant amount of its inherent stability. Instead of sitting on top of the midsole, you're cupped in there. So the midsole rises up on both the lateral side and especially the medial side right here on your arch. And that midsole material right there riding up provides some inherent structure and stability to the shoe. You feel like your foot's cupped in there. It's got a little more arch support. It just feels more structured and stable for that very reason. Good job, On. Okay, now let's talk about the most impressive feature of the all-new On Cloudmonster, and that is this midsole. On uses what they call the double CloudTech cushion pods. This is the signature configuration of On shoes, right? Which makes them unique. It's these hollowed out pods, these CloudTech pods. Now, On in this shoe is using a double layer of those pods, or double thickness of those pods. And let me tell you, the sensation when you run in these shoes is amazing. That feeling, not only because of the higher stack height, but also the helium super foam that they're also using in conjunction with those Cloud Tech cushion pods. It's a much more cushioned and responsive midsole foam, and used in conjunction with these Cloud Tech cushion pods, the sensation you get is you feel those cushion pods being compressed when you foot strike. But instead of them bottoming out, you feel them compressed, but then you feel them pop. And that gives you responsiveness. Along with this rocker, which is similar to the early stage Meta rocker in the Hoka Arahi 6, you get this compression, this pop, and you get this really responsive toe off. It's a very interesting sensation because it's different than the Hoka Arahi 6, which I tell you is a pretty responsive shoe. The difference here is the midsole material is where you feel you're getting a lot of that responsiveness versus just the rocker itself. And to add to that, sandwiched in here is this thin thermoplastic layer called the Speedboard. So you've got this helium super foam in conjunction with the double Cloud Tech cushion pods, and you've got this thermoplastic Speedboard layer in there and this rocker. And man, the sensation is a bouncy, forward, propulsive feel. I'm going to tell you, it's pretty darn amazing. Now, talking about the cushioning, you've got that nice feel. You can feel it compress, you can feel it pop, all that good stuff. But there's still plenty of cushioning there. It's not firm. I had heard, it's not all that soft, but I'm going to tell you, it's not squishy soft at all. But it is not hard. It is not firm. It feels very, very comfortable when you come down on your heel or midfoot or forefoot. Either way, it feels real good. And as you roll through the forefoot in the gait cycle, it firms up just a little bit because of that Speedboard. And man, it gives you a push. Even at slow speeds, you feel that bounce. So that's really impressive. Now, this is a long distance daily trainer, right? It's just a little bit under 10 ounces in a men's size 9. It's a max cushion daily trainer. So, it's designed to be able to put in a lot of miles. But I'm going to tell you, I think this shoe is pretty versatile. I think this shoe can pick up the pace. I think this shoe would be good for tempo runs. And I think if you don't want to spend $250 to $300 on a carbon-plated 7-ounce racing shoe, I think that for half marathons up to a marathon, this might be an option. Which brings us to the outsole. So if you look at the outsole on this shoe, it's pretty wide. It's got a pretty wide midsole and outsole here. The heel width itself, it's not real wide because it's a neutral shoe, but it's wide enough. But this outsole, let's look at that. You have outsole rubber strategically placed. You've got these flex grooves here. You've got some outsole rubber here, here, and here, strategically placed. Over here, however, that's exposed midsole material. But the question is, over time, is that exposed midsole material going to wear excessively? The rubber is soft enough that it's got really, really good grip, wet or dry. Now, again, the question there, kind of like in the Hoka Arahi 6 and 5 for that matter, is the softer outsole rubber tends to wear more excessively than the harder outsole rubber. So the trade-off you get is you get better grip, but you also get excessive wear. I'm hoping it's going to hold up for 300 or 400 miles. I mean, that would be fantastic. And at $170 US, you expect the shoe to last. One last thing, I did mention, it's got this rocker here and it's got this Speedboard. This is not the most flexible forefoot of any shoe. It's pretty stiff, to be honest, but because of that rocker geometry, you don't really feel that the shoe is inflexible. Outstanding, outstanding, outstanding On. Okay, finally, we get to, that thing you've been wondering throughout this entire review. Old Man Van's a stability runner. All the things he's talked about in this review are great regarding this shoe. But what about the stability? So I told you that this shoe I had read had some inherent stability. I'm going to tell you that is correct. I've run in this shoe. I can tell that it's a neutral shoe, okay? I can tell that. But in none of the runs that I've done so far, and I've done, I think, 4 runs in it, have I felt that my ankle was rolling in. Now, I haven't taken this shoe on a double-digit run yet. So far, though, I haven't felt that it lacked support. I simply felt that, hey, you know, I didn't feel something hard there keeping my foot in place. So I didn't have any discomfort, didn't have any knee issues, didn't have any ankle issues. I felt the bounce. It was really, really comfortable running in it. What we're going to have to see is how that works out for me as a mild to moderate stability runner when I start getting up there into those double-digit runs. So how would I rate the all-new On Cloudmonster on my first impressions? Well, I'm going to give this shoe a 9.25 on a scale of 10. The reason why I'm only giving it a 9.25 is, A, it's neutral, so I don't know if it's going to work for me from a stability standpoint long-term or in those longer runs. We shall see. And second, I'm not so sure if this outsole is going to last. There's nothing so far that tells me it won't, outside of the fact that it's very soft and there is some exposed midsole material that I have some questions about as to whether that is going to wear. So there's plenty of opportunity as I put more miles in this shoe for the On Cloudmonster score to be raised. So thanks for watching my first impressions review of the all-new On Cloudmonster. I really do appreciate you watching this video. If you got to the end, that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Don't forget, down below, hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't like it, it's okay to hit thumbs down. Regardless, please leave comments. I do try to respond to everyone in a timely manner, and I promise I will do the same for you. If you want to get notified of more videos on the Old Man Van Running channel, whether it's shoe reviews, gear reviews, or my Boston qualifier attempt vlog, please subscribe to the Old Man Van Running channel and hit the notification bell up top, and you will get notified when new videos are posted. So thanks again, and remember, lace up those shoes, and let's get out of the roads.